What happened to Lonzo Ball? Lonzo Ball has had a very up and down NBA career so far. Originally, there was a ton of excitement around his name, and then that excitement slowly started to wane, then it came back slightly, and now at this point, that excitement once again has waned. And at this point, people don't know what to expect from Lonzo Ball going forward anymore. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports, I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. Lonzo Ball was originally drafted with the number 2 overall selection in the 2017 NBA draft by the Los Angeles Lakers. And originally when Lonzo was getting drafted, there was a ton of hype and excitement around his name. People saw him as the potential next Magic Johnson, people saw him as a legitimate superstar, and overall there were just very, very high expectations. Expectations that would be very hard to meet for any player. But early on, Lonzo Ball started to struggle a little bit, and people were getting concerned about him going forward long term. And after 2 full seasons with the LA Lakers, I would say Lonzo just played decently well. He showed some flashes of what he could potentially do with his great passing and playmaking ability and his overall great basketball IQ. He also showed some abilities in certain games in terms of his offensive ability, but overall I wouldn't necessarily say he played the best in LA. And after his tenure with the LA Lakers, people didn't see Lonzo as a good player anymore. People saw him as an NBA draft bust, and he would never be anywhere close to those expectations he had originally. And after those 2 full seasons, the Lakers decided to move him in that Anthony Davis deal, and he ended up getting traded to the New Orleans Pelicans. Now with the Pelicans, I thought it was a much better fit for Lonzo. He was now playing with a much younger team with no expectations. He was also playing with Zion Williamson and a bunch of other young guys, and overall the situation in New Orleans not only had a ton of less pressure on him, but was also just a better fit for him in general. And that thought process proved to be true very early on for Lonzo. As in his first season with the Pelicans, he didn't necessarily play great, but he played much better and he was showing much more flashes than he ever did in LA. And in his second season with the Pelicans, he had the best season of his career, averaging 14.5 points per game on 41% shooting from the field, 4.8 rebounds on 5.7 assists. And probably one of the more impressive things about Lonzo that season is he was shooting almost 38% from deep, which is actually pretty good. And when you consider that the 3-point jump shot was one of the biggest concerns about Lonzo going into the NBA, that was certainly very impressive to see the type of improvement that he showed. But after that 2020 season, people were very high on Lonzo. Of course, there were some concerns about injuries. He was getting injured quite a bit, but overall, when he was playing out there on the court, it was pretty clear that he was a very talented player in terms of his offensive abilities, but more importantly, he was an extremely smart player and a very winning player. He was the type of player out there that everybody wants to play with because he's always going to get his teammates open shots in the right spots to put them in the best positions to succeed. But unfortunately, after that 2020 season, that was the last year Lonzo spent with the Pelicans as he decided to move on to the Chicago Bulls. Now with the Bulls, I would say he played pretty well, averaging 13 points per game on 42% shooting from the field, 5.4 rebounds on 5.1 assists. Once again, Lonzo was showing nice flashes, he was showing his fantastic basketball IQ, but the one big issue that he was facing, which was becoming somewhat of a theme throughout his career, was injuries. That season, Lonzo only played 35 games, which obviously was a concern. And after that 2021 season ended, and fast forwarding to this season, Lonzo still hasn't played this year at all, and there have been some reports saying that Lonzo isn't going to play at all this season. So at this point, there certainly are major concerns about Lonzo Ball's health and his ability to stay healthy consistently throughout an NBA season and also going forward long term, especially considering he is a young player. So if he's showing these injury concerns this early on, of course it's a big concern going forward. But now the question is, what can we expect from Lonzo Ball going forward? Could he be a player that turns things around and stays healthy consistently going forward, or is he going to be a player that has a ton of talent and has a ton of ability but won't be able to fully show that potential out due to those injuries? Well, in my opinion, I do think Lonzo has the ability to stay healthy. I do think it's a very smart decision to keep Lonzo out the entire year this year, especially for a younger player who has shown the inability to stay healthy. Giving Lonzo an entire season this year and even half of the season last year to fully recover and to fully feel comfortable on his injuries injuries is extremely important, because typically when players go through injuries, they need one full season out depending on how severe that injury was, but they also need another season to feel comfortable. That's why a lot of times when you see players go down with an ACL injury, that first season they're out for the entire season, but the season following that, even when they come back, they're not fully back yet because they don't feel comfortable on that injury. So that's why I think it's very important for Lonzo to be out the entire year this year, and I actually think it's a smart move. And going forward long term, if Lonzo does all the right things, I think he could be healthy for the most part going forward. He's probably never going to play 82 games in a season, but if you can at least play 70 to 73, 74 games a year, I would be very happy with that. And if he is able to do that, his game on the court would only improve as well, because he has more time to feel more confident out there on the court and just improve his game year after year. I mentioned this in a couple different videos, but I see Lonzo as a very talented young player. I don't ever think he's going to average 20 plus points in the NBA. I don't think he's that kind of player, but I do think he's a type of player that can average anywhere from 15 to 17 points per game on relatively efficient shooting numbers. But really the main ability and the main focal point of Lonzo's offense would be his great basketball IQ and his passing and playmaking ability. Lonzo is the exact type of point guard that you want to have on your team, especially a team competing for a championship. He does a great job defensively, he does a great job at setting up his teammates offensively, and he does all the intangible things very well out there for your team. So I think if Lonzo could stay relatively healthy throughout the rest of his career, he has a very bright future ahead of him, and he's the type of player that anybody would want on their roster. I think he's that good. But of course at this point he hasn't really shown any evidence of being able to play for an entire season and being mostly healthy, so of course that is a big what if. But just touching a little bit more upon how much value Lonzo truly has to an organization, just look at the Chicago Bulls. When Lonzo was playing for the Bulls, they were a pretty good team, they were certainly a playoff team, and this season since Lonzo has been out, the Bulls have been struggling significantly. Now as of late they have been playing a little bit better, especially after adding Patrick Beverley to the roster, but I think in general how the Bulls have been playing this year has been very indicative of how important Lonzo Ball is to the roster. And if the Bulls decide to blow things up after having a pretty poor season this year and decide to trade away a lot of their main guys, and if that does include Lonzo Ball, I think whatever team he ends up going to, he'll be a perfect fit for. If he goes to a team that's competing for a championship, I think he'll accelerate the growth of that team. I think if he's going to a team that's a young up and coming team, once again he'll accelerate their growth. And even if he goes to a bad team, I think he could turn a bad team into an okay team or something around that point. I think Lonzo just provides a ton of value, and any team in the NBA would be lucky to have a player like that. Of course, just the one main issue with Lonzo is he needs to stay healthy. That's absolutely crucial for his growth going forward for himself personally, but also for any team that ends up picking him up. And I think we've really seen that with the Chicago Bulls this year as compared to last year. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening with not only Lonzo Ball, but also the Chicago Bulls and what they decide to do long term. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Lonzo Ball has the opportunity to turn things around and be a lot more healthy throughout the rest of his career, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.